All right, so we are actually live. Hey guys, good morning. This is Charisma here from Gotta Have Charisma, and I'm really excited this morning because there's a whole lot of buzz going around on a really big topic called the coronavirus. And I made some connections and got connected to an amazing doctor by the name of Dr. Kanisha Hall. This amazing woman is a medical doctor. She's a board certified anesthesiologist. She's a counselor and she's a published author of the Amazon best-selling book Sex After, which is a woman's guide to empowered and enhanced sexual experience in the evolution of life. And that in itself would be a totally different interview because that's an interesting topic as well. But in addition to that, she's a world traveler. She's a mother and she's from Shreveport, Louisiana. And after graduating with honors from Louisiana Tech University with a BS in chemistry, she succeeded with a second BS in bioscience technology from Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia. Dr. Kanisha also trained a board in Sagamihara, Japan, to complete a fellowship in cytopathology at Kitasato University. She obtained a doctorate of medicine from Howard University, later completing her residency in anesthesiology at Louisiana State University. Her ambition led her to matriculate at the University of Michigan, where she studied as a cohort in sexual health and counseling. And today, she practices anesthesiology, perioperative medicine, critical care, and is licensed in multiple states across the US. But I'm going to reiterate this woman, in addition to all of her amazing accolades, she is a world traveler and she is a mother. So she is beyond qualified in many ways to actually speak to us today on the coronavirus. So let me go ahead and introduce her. Okay, three, two, and she's live.
Hello.
So I'm so freaking excited to have you on. I know we've been chatting behind the scenes, going over this
Yes.
madness that is going all over the world, the country, everywhere. So we're going to just go ahead and dive right into our first question because this is what everyone wants to know. What exactly is this coronavirus thing?
So, coronavirus is not just one virus, it actually describes an entire family of viruses. And everyone's like, it can't be new because it was listed on the Lysol container. And it's true. Coronaviruses has been around for years, decades, if not centuries. It's not new. But what is new is this particular strain. So when you say coronavirus, you're talking about an entire family of viruses. But what is important and what the news cycle currently pertains to is this specific strain of coronaviruses that has been isolated, first starting overseas and now here in the United States.
And it's been around for a while. So
Okay.
speaking of it not being new, it's an old virus. And just because we're hearing about it now, it has been spreading before, correct? And this is something that maybe we shouldn't be as afraid of, or give us a little bit of backstory more on the Lysol bottles. I've been hearing it's on Lysol bottles. I've been hearing that there's been treatments going on with animals for years. I've been hearing that it's sitting in places that has been around for many decades, not just for a couple of years.
Okay, so let's just start with the facts. The family of coronavirus has been around for years. Coronavirus, the family, was also responsible for SARS. We remember that epidemic, I think that was 2014, if I'm not mistaken. A few years back with the cats, and again, started off in overseas in Asia. People were contracting what was called SARS, which is SARS, which is an abbreviation for severe acute respiratory syndrome. This virus is again in the family of corona. When I say family, these viruses are living, tiny living organisms that have genetic systems similar to human DNA. They are living organisms and they are in the same family, meaning they look alike. If you put them under the microscope and you're looking at them, they do look alike, but they're not exactly the same when it comes to their genetic coding. As time goes along, we're familiar with gene mutations and the way people change. Like, even now, we're taller than some of our ancestors because we adapt and we change. So these viruses have had changes and adaptations that can make them more virulent. By that, I mean make them more capable of causing more severe symptoms and syndromes, possibly, because again of the changing in their genetic makeup. But again, all of these SARS, the current coronavirus, all of these are in the same family. And in comparison to the flu, you remember H1N1? It was still a part of the flu family, but it was a really, really nasty strand of the influenza or flu family. So all of these are different. Influenza is the family of viruses that's responsible for the flu. And you'll hear me reference that a lot in comparison, just because there is a lot to compare when you look at how corona spreads and how the flu spreads. But this family of viruses has been around for a very long time. It's not something new. It can live up to, I do believe, 8 to 14 days on surfaces, depending on the environment, the temperature, the humidity, and the actual surface that it is found on. All of that makes a difference in how long it can live. So you do have a concern about touching certain surfaces and touching your face, your mouth, your nose, or eating and putting food in your mouth, which could cause spread. But that's why we're here and we're talking today. And you're going to hear me say it 1,000 times. Hygiene, cleanliness is your best first line of defense.
Gotcha. So my brother last night sent me a message and he says, "Hey, I'm coughing, I have diarrhea, and I'm dizzy with the loss of appetite. Do I have the coronavirus?" So what are the symptoms of the coronavirus so people also can be educated and know the difference between other symptoms that they may have from something else?
But that's the thing. Like, the symptoms are so vague. When I tell you the symptoms are everything he just said: coughing, sneezing, sore throat. But aren't those also the symptoms for a common cold, a sinus infection, the flu, body aches, fever? All of the symptoms are so broad and encompassing. It could be anything. It could be stomach flu. It could be food poisoning. What did he eat? Where has he been? And it's not necessarily something that could be diagnosed over the phone, but we can assess risk. Has he traveled to any places that are high risk for coronavirus? Has he been in large crowds? Has he been on an airplane? What has he done that may make me more suspicious of corona as opposed to the flu? Or this could actually be the flu. It is almost 20 times more likely that someone would contract the flu as opposed to coronavirus.
Okay. So if someone does have these symptoms, how is it diagnosed and how are they figuring out if they actually do have the coronavirus versus anything else?
There's actually a swab where they can swab your nose and oral pharynx and actually match it to the known DNA genetic makeup of this virus.
Gotcha. Some really great information. And so I was sharing with you the story of when I went to Whole Foods the other day, and there was these two women that actually had a fight over the hand sanitizer. One woman picked up all the hand sanitizer, put it into her basket, and the other woman asked her, could she have one because she was hoarding all of it. Needless to say, she said no. It ended up in an altercation. People are going crazy over hand sanitizer, these wipes. What are some of the things that they should be using? Face masks. Let's go over those things.
Okay. First, let's start. I'm going to get to the hand sanitizer. I think that is very, very important. We're going to definitely get to that. But let's start with the mask, okay? The CDC does not recommend it. Our current United States Surgeon General, who is also a board certified anesthesiologist like myself, masks are for healthcare workers who need to protect themselves as they are working to treat sick people, and not just sick people with corona. But masks are actually best for those who are immune compromised and might actually have a contagious disease to keep to themselves. If and there's a particular type of mask called an N95 that you have to be fit tested for in order for it to be remotely effective. Wearing a mask, if you're not used to wearing a mask, is very irritating. Try it. Try putting anything on your face that you are not, and what are you going to do? You're going to touch your face and increase the chance of not just spreading corona, but spreading germs to one of the largest orifices of your body, which is your mouth and your nose. You're going to be playing with the mask and moving it around, and it's going to, mess with your makeup, and you're not providing any protection. And what was amazing to me, similar to your story, I went to Home Depot the other day for something completely unrelated, and they are completely sold out of paper temporary masks that are no protection whatsoever from coronavirus, and they're disposable. And I see people out in public with disposable masks that are only supposed to be worn one time, and they're just repeatedly wearing. Masks are not effective. And to my knowledge, I don't even know of any public access to N95 masks. You have to order them, and you still would have to be actually fitted for them. Like, we have to, at the hospital, as a physician, we have to go through an entire process to be fitted for an N95 mask to make it effective. Secondly, back to the hand sanitizer. What makes hand sanitizer effective is its concentration of alcohol. It has to be a minimum of 70% alcohol, but hand sanitizer is not an antidote. What if I had a paper towel and I poured 70% alcohol on it? Would it not be just effective as hand sanitizer? It would be, and a lot cheaper and a lot readily available right now. But still, in all of the research, physically moving and washing your hands with soap and water, and not necessarily antibacterial soap, just soap and water, and this motion of disrupting old skin cells, any kind of bacteria or virus, doing this for 20 seconds like I'm doing right now is still more effective than hand sanitizer.
Gotcha. So just doing what you should be doing anyway, washing your hands and then turning around. And if you want to have some hand sanitizer and you can't find it, just turn over and go and get some rubbing alcohol.
Rubbing alcohol.
Gotcha. So with that said,
also baby wipes. You can add alcohol to your baby wipes and still be just as effective.
Gotcha.
Stores haven't sold out of baby wipes yet. There's no more Lysol wipes and no more hand sanitizer, but there's the baby wipes and diapers are still there. I was just at Walmart. They're still there. You can actually
I'm on a webinar. Can you please give me 1 second, guys? Hold on 1 second.
And while she's gone, I just want to continue talking and letting you guys know, like, that's one of my cheap little wonderful hacks is I always have baby wipes. My baby is not a baby anymore. She's actually 5, but I find wipes to be even cheaper. I was just going to continue talking about my baby wipe hack. My baby is 5 years old, but baby wipes are still cheaper than like the makeup remover wipes. That's like my life hack. So you can add a little peroxide, a little alcohol to that package of baby wipes, and it will clean and disinfect anything.
Nice. I'm loving all the tips and things to keep us safe. And so people want to know, is there a treatment if they are diagnosed with the coronavirus? Is there a treatment for this?
At this time, there's no specific treatment that kills coronavirus, and antibacterials are for bacteria, not for viruses. This is a virus. The treatment is supportive care. If you have symptoms of muscle aches and fever, Tylenol and ibuprofen, um, maintaining hydration, whether it's via IV fluids or if you're able to still drink and keep it down. If you're nauseous, taking medicines that help you with nausea, motion sickness, and things like that. All of the treatments and therapies right now are targeted at treating the symptoms of this overall disease process. But I want to reassure people that a positive corona test is not equal to having the actual disease process of corona. And even having a positive test and symptoms does not mean that you're going to die. As of date, there are not any healthy people in the United States or abroad, healthy people that have met a fatality or died from coronavirus. The actual fatalities were in patients who were immune compromised and had pre-existing conditions and what would be categorized as poor health.
Gotcha. So, which leads me to, there's lots of information that's out there. People are really taking the time to compare the coronavirus to the flu. And one thing that I found really interesting, that in comparison to the flu, which has had over 45 million cases and over 46,000 deaths, the coronavirus, as of the release of this, had about 15 deaths and only 299 cases. Of course, that's increasing. But what does that have to say about the information and who's giving the information? Because I went to a book signing with Dr. Brown, who was the former premier of Bermuda. So he is a politician, but also a doctor. And he's telling us to stop paying attention to our politicians and start paying attention to our physicians. What is your take on that?
This is not a political issue. This is not about an upcoming election. This is a public health matter. As a physician, I want my information to come from the CDC. As a mother with a young child, and like you say, having to travel, I just got off a plane to Atlanta, which is the home of the CDC, last week, and we'll be on another one on Thursday. And yes, I will still continue to travel and still continue to educate people. And that's my job. That is my duty. I want to hear from the virologists who are studying these viruses at the CDC and in my community. I am located in Houston, Texas, where we're at just above a dozen cases, positive cases, no fatalities. No fatalities. We have a dozen positive corona cases, and not all dozen cases are even symptomatic. But I want to know from my community health leaders. I want to know from my local physicians. I want to know from my hospital administration, my hospital healthcare providers on what I need to do, what I need to be aware of to keep me and my family safe. I'm not worried about political platforms and what politicians have to say. I need to know what these virologists, these specific PhDs and doctors who are studying the behavior, the movement, the infection rate of this virus has to say. And I want to know specifically what's going on in my community where I live here in Houston, because that is what is going to affect my loved ones, my family, and the way we move around this city. Also, with that being said, the characteristics of this virus, it is not correct in any way to say that corona is more virulent than the flu. It is not more fatal than the flu. Just as you have given us numbers, there are more people contracting and dying of the flu than corona. And as I said before, none of these people who were unfortunately, who did die were previously healthy. They were unfortunately in poor health, which made their symptoms more likely to succumb to the symptoms of coronavirus. Whereas I was in the hospital and in the trenches when H1N1 was running rampant. I think that was 2010, 2012. And there were healthy people who were becoming seriously ill with H1N1, and that is not coronavirus in no way, shape, form, or comparison. That is not where we are. We have had people who were positively testing for corona who have gone through their 14-day soliloquy and they are fine. We have asked them, what would you compare these symptoms to? And we get random answers from a severe sinus infection, a cold, a flu, to mild. I had a really, really bad sore throat, scratchy throat, fever, felt really, really tired, malaise. These are the kind of exit interviews that these patients are giving after going through the actual disease process. And there are other people, like I said, that are having severe symptoms where it does progress to that severe acute respiratory disorder that requires them to be in the ICU. It may require some mechanical ventilation, but in some cases, they do recover and get better. It's harder when you have a low immune system, when you're already not healthy, when you contract the virus. If you have diabetes, which can lower your immune system, if you already have like kidney disease, heart disease, all of these other disease processes before you contract the virus, of course, that's going to increase your risk. So the most important thing is to be healthy, be in touch with your primary care physician. And a lot of people don't want to go to the doctor right now because they don't want to be in a doctor's office with someone else that may appear sick. But there have been protocols in place. I know and I'm a doctor with the doctor. At my doctor's office, they have a sick waiting room and a healthy waiting room for those people who still need to get their annual checkups, get their visits, get their medications, and take care of their day-to-day health situations and become healthier and live healthier lifestyles. So I do know that that's the case in a lot of primary care practices. So do not shy away from keeping your doctor's appointments and doctor's visits to stay healthy. And telemedicine is absolutely wonderful right now. You can, just like we're having this Facebook Live right now, you can actually telecommunicate with a primary care physician to make sure you're doing everything that you need to do to keep your heart healthy, keep your kidneys healthy, keep your family healthy, and help you make those hard decisions. Is it time to go to the urgent care? Is it time to go to the ER? This is what I feel. I felt this way before. I'm leaning more towards this might be a sinus infection. And they're going to ask you the questions. Where have you traveled? Where have you been? What is the real likelihood of this being corona? And it's very, very low.
Gotcha. So speaking of, they're going to ask you, one, where have you traveled? What would you say to people that are out there traveling right now and taking precaution with the coronavirus?
The precautions are going to be awareness. And I'll speak from personal experience. Aside from the fact of me being a doctor, having to travel so much for business and not just my practices because I'm licensed in several different states, but I also travel for public speaking and education purposes. I, in the past, have been one to pop in my earbuds, tune out the entire world, and go about my business. I can't do that now. You have to be vigilant. I usually wear layers, and by that I mean a jacket, a shirt, and an undershirt. When I'm traveling, I keep my hands in my pockets to make me aware of my body presence and not to touch my face or reach out and shake someone's hand, as I tend to try to be very cordial. And I also wear layers. So when I get where I'm going, the clothing or the layer I have been traveling in, I can easily shed as not to expose those I am going to meet with when I'm traveling. So those are my first two tips. There are awareness, be aware of your environment, be aware of your body movements. Secondly, dress in layers that as you are traveling or journeying, those travel clothes that have been exposed to the plane, the train, the bus, the car, or whatever, the rental car or whatever, they can be easily shed before, say, you're sitting down to share a meal or you're hugging or greeting the people that you have come to meet. Um, a lot of conferences, a lot of business settings have adopted a no handshake policy. I think that's a great policy to have. It's not a means of being rude. I do carry hand sanitizer, but whenever possible, I actually go to the restroom to wash my hands, whether I have to actually use the restroom or not before I board. And when immediately when I leave the plane, I go to the restroom and wash my hands. 20 seconds, hum my little song, my little favorite verse, actually wash my hands. If I don't have access immediately to a restroom, I do use my hand sanitizer. I do not wear a mask. You will not see Dr. Hall in the airport with a mask. It's not going to happen. And I'm not going near anyone who is wearing a mask. And no, you cannot come talk to me while you're wearing your mask. I'm not exactly sure why you're wearing it. Um, I try to be aware of other people that are around me that might appear to not be well, coughing, try to stay out of the way. If I do have to cough, clear my throat, blow my nose, I always use more than one tissue. Cough into your elbow, um, and just be aware. But I can't stop traveling. I don't, but my travel is for business. Travel for leisure, I think, it's up to your discretion. The CDC has an ongoing, up to date website where you know where current hot spots for the virus are. There are still areas and countries, one being Mexico, that does not have any cases thus far of coronavirus. And I've considered taking a little vacation from this craziness to Mexico, and I don't think that's a bad idea. Um, but just in general, taking precautions to be safe. I know recently a lot of things have been canceled in light of coronavirus. Here in Texas, they canceled South by Southwest, which is a huge music and tech festival here. But that was at the recommendation of the CDC. They felt that this festival, which is known to attract people, not just in the United States, not just in Texas, but tech companies and travelers from all over the world come to this festival. And they just really felt like that might be a breeding ground for the virus. Um, and I have to trust the recommendations, not on city officials, but on the actual CDC. If they believe that that was a risk factor, I believe them.
Yeah.
So just using your best judgment.
So, yeah, using your best judgment here, but how about abroad too? So, specifically China here. What should travelers returning home to the USA from China know about the coronavirus and traveling?
The quarantine length of stay is 14 days. Um, as a responsible traveler returning from any high risk area, not just China, but also Italy. To my knowledge, the cases that we have here in my community here in Houston is the result of traveling to Italy, not China.
Gotcha.
So, returning from any of these known hotspots, it is your responsibility as a responsible citizen in this public health matter. I would quarantine myself for 14 days. If you are asymptomatic for the course of those 14 days, I think it is safe with caution to continue to move around in your community. I would also reach out to my primary care physician just to make them aware. The CDC has representatives at all major international airports, so it's responsible to check in with those representatives from the CDC and let them know where you are returning from. But they have been keeping tabs on all of those people that are traveling from these high risk areas.
Gotcha. So I know you said that you would recommend people putting their travel plans on hold, but I have some travel plans coming up and I have a lot of them. One, how long do you think that we should, maybe not travel as much if we can't? But if we do have travel plans, should we be canceling them? And for how long should we avoid this period of not traveling?
These are personal decisions that you have to make based on one, your healthcare status. Are you healthy? Are you considered in a high risk group of immune compromised people? Are you physically able to handle the strenuous activity of traveling in this stressful environment? I have traveled too. I have to get on a plane this coming Thursday. I modified my travel plans. At first, I had planned for my child and my mother to travel with me. I am now deciding to travel alone. One, my mom is a little bit older. She having diabetes and other health concerns. I don't want to stress her, and I do consider her to be in a higher risk population. She will not be traveling with me, and my daughter will not be traveling with me. That was a decision I had to make as a physician and also as a caretaker. So that was my decision to make. To I still have to travel, and I will travel. I'm not leaving the country. I'll be traveling from Houston to Atlanta. So I still will be traveling, but I made the decision to travel alone instead of with my family, with my young child, and with my mother. I made the decision to travel alone as I know what I need to do to keep me safe and prevent um, coming into contact with this virus. If you have to travel, these are the considerations you need to make. One, are you healthy? I don't believe that immune compromised people need to be putting themselves at risk unless it is absolutely necessary. And I can't tell you whether something is absolutely necessary. These are personal and professional convictions that you have to decide. Two, also, um, what are your means of travel? Is it possible to get there by car in your own personal vehicle, which would limit your exposure to the public when you're traveling? Or do you have to get on a plane? Do you have to get on a train? Do you have to get on a bus? And where are you going to? Are you going to travel for a specific business meeting one on one with particular people? Or is this a conference? Is this a large gathering of people, which the CDC has declared is higher risk? The American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons just canceled, just literally moments ago, within the last couple of hours, they have canceled their national conference that was supposed to take place in Orlando, Florida. They canceled their conference because of the amount of travel it would require for the surgeons to attend this educational conference, the population of travelers that would be coming, not just, from every corner of the United States, some of these people coming from abroad, that they thought that it was a high risk situation that needed to be canceled, and also allowed these healthcare workers to remain in their community to provide support for their communities in this time of this public health situation. I won't call it a public health crisis because I don't believe it is a crisis, but I do believe it is a public health concern.
New question that just came in, and I don't think it's one that we've covered. Someone came in and said, I so they were told that they did have the coronavirus symptoms and they were quarantined for 14 days. They've been let go. Do they need to still worry about catching it again?
Contracting the virus does not mean immunity. Were they ever tested for coronavirus? And whether yes or no, they are still to this, they're still not positive. If they were not tested and had confirmed that this was the actual coronavirus, we still don't know if this was corona or not. But actually contracting corona does not grant automatic immunity, as in that you cannot contract. Remember, this is a family of viruses that have different genetic makeup. There is no vaccine that would say, oh, you cannot get coronavirus again because you had it one time. That's not how this virus works.
Gotcha. And then So, a question that I would want to ask, in addition to using Teledoc, I also have emergency evacuation. So, for when I travel, is there anything else as a doctor that also travels the world would recommend people having when they're traveling during this coronavirus time, or just in general to make sure that you're safe health wise, no matter what, and you can make it back home?
I always travel with my health insurance information, and I always check with my health insurance to be aware of my benefits when traveling, because most mainstream health insurance companies do have travel riders, which means that your benefits are not just limited to where you live. If you need to go to an urgent care, an emergency room, a doctor visit, or whatever, while you are not at home physically in your community, you need to know what your benefits are. Is it going to cost more? Is it a specific fee that's involved in traveling? Also, if you have AAA or some car insurances, other travel insurance will also offer healthcare benefits. So just be aware of what those things are, because those are not things that you want to have to search, research, and find in the midst of an emergency. So have an emergency plan. Know where hospitals are along your route and where you're traveling. Where are the hospital centers, because every hospital doesn't have an ICU or the ability to take care of severe disease. So know where your critical access points, where your critical care hospitals are that can take care of emergencies. And this is not just for corona. Like, you are still more statistically likely to experience an accident or a trauma than you are to contract corona. So these are good things to know just traveling in general. Where is the hospital that could take care of you if you did have an accident, a trauma, or you did suddenly become ill? Secondly, I always have a digital file, and it's not something sophisticated. I have an email. Within that email are all my important emergency medical documents, as far as my living will, my list of allergies, medications, previous surgeries, previous medical conditions that I have had. That's all in an email. So whoever I'm traveling with, or if I'm traveling alone, I know how to access that email. And I have my actual primary care physician saved as ICE, important contact for emergency. It's saved in my phone. So if I do have an emergency where I cannot readily communicate with those taking care of me, if they go through my phone, they can see my primary care doctor as an emergency contact who has all hard copies of my health history and health records. And again, this is not just about corona. These are things you need to be doing if you're traveling, because in the general population, you are still more statistically likely to have an accident, a car accident, or a trauma, as opposed to contracting the coronavirus.
Gotcha. So that it pretty much sums up all the questions that I have here. Is there anything else that you want to leave us with before we head out of here? After you do, we are going to be sharing your socials, so everyone, if you have any additional questions, you're going to be able to access her via her Instagram, Twitter, and her website. But how would you like to leave us today?
I just want to remind people that I know this is a lot of information, and you feel like media is coming at you from all angles, from the news cycle to social media posts about coronavirus. It's okay to take a break from that and live your life. Just be careful, be clean, be safe. But stress in itself has an impact on your immune system. If you're not taking a daily vitamin, you need to take. It's not just for the kids. The kids just don't need their Flintstones. Every single person, no matter what age you are, man, woman, adult, and child, everyone should be taking a daily vitamin to You want to be healthy. You want to focus on being healthy and lower as much of your stress as possible and disconnect at times. I have to be aware of everything that's going on in the healthcare community when it comes to coronavirus right now. But as of tomorrow, I will be happily unplugged, not knowing every single new case that manifests itself in my community. I will wash my hands and I will be careful and I will continue to live my life. And like I said on Thursday, I will be traveling. Everyone just be safe, decrease the stress, and be as healthy as possible.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank you for taking your time out today to answering all of our questions and giving us some peace of mind. And I look forward to next time because that book that you have,
Oh, we
really
got to talk.
interesting. Would love to learn more about that. I'm going to give it a read through, and then we'll probably see ourselves here back again. So,
Okay.
namaste.
Namaste.